Zara stepped off the plane, her heart heavy as she gazed upon the familiar skyline of Istanbul. It had been years since she left to pursue her dream of becoming a renowned designer in Paris. The hustle of the city, the streets she once roamed as a child, and the smell of the Bosphorus River brought a rush of memories she couldn't shake. But what made her return was not nostalgia, it was necessity. Her father, once a powerful magnate, was gravely ill, and her family's magnificent estate, Kosk Evi, was now on the brink of being sold to pay off the immense debts he had accrued. Zara knew this day would come. She just didn't know how soon. She stood before the grand mansion, its walls still adorned with remnants of the past, but the cracks were evident. The garden, once full of vibrant flowers, was now withered and untended. It was a far cry from the thriving estate she remembered. As she walked through the halls, her mind raced with thoughts of what would become of her family's legacy. Could she save it? A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was her longtime family lawyer, Ahmet. He handed her a sealed envelope with a name that sent a chill down her spine: Demir Kaan, a billionaire from the industrial world, and someone who had been circling her family's wealth for years. "I've received an offer," Ahmet said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "From Kaan's company. He wants to discuss the possibility of purchasing the estate." Zara clenched her fists. She had heard rumors of Kaan's empire-building plans, but she never thought it would come to this. The battle for her family's estate had just begun. The next day, Zara found herself sitting in a lavish office overlooking the Bosphorus, facing Kaan Demir, the self-made billionaire. His eyes were cold, calculating, yet there was something magnetic about him. He was a man who didn't need to say much to command attention. His presence alone did the work. "I believe you've heard of me," Kaan said, leaning back in his leather chair. His voice was smooth, with an edge of power that couldn't be ignored. Zara met his gaze. "I know your reputation." Kaan smiled, a knowing smile that barely touched his lips. "I've heard your family's estate is in jeopardy. I'd like to offer you a chance to save it, and in doing so, save your legacy." He raised an eyebrow. "How do you propose I do that?" He slid a contract toward her. "I need a design for a resort I'm building on my private island. I'll pay you handsomely for your services. In exchange, you help me with my project, and we'll make sure your family doesn't lose this estate." Zara's eyes narrowed. There was something more to this offer than he was letting on. "And if I refuse?" Kaan's gaze hardened. "If you refuse, I'll take what's mine, starting with this estate." Zara's heart raced. She didn't know whether to be intimidated or intrigued. But one thing was certain. She couldn't let him take her family's legacy without a fight. As Zara began to work on the design for Kaan's resort, she discovered just how deep his plans ran. He was no ordinary businessman, he was a man with a vision. And that vision included claiming Kırşevi, her family's estate, as his own. The resort project, which had initially seemed like a simple job, was now entangled in a web of power plays. The more Zara worked with Kaan, the more she realized how complex the situation had become. He was just interested in her design talents, he wanted everything. But Zara wasn't willing to let her family's heritage slip away without a fight. The tension between them was palpable, with Kaan trying to use every angle to get closer to her family's estate. Zara, on the other hand, kept her guard up, refusing to give him an inch. Despite their rivalry, the attraction between them began to simmer beneath the surface. Zara couldn't ignore the way Kaan looked at her. There was a fire in his eyes that both excited and terrified her. One evening, after a long day of negotiations, Zara found herself in Kaan's private office. The space was modern, sleek, and filled with an almost palpable energy. "I don't trust you," Zara said, her voice firm. Kaan looked up from his papers, his eyes intense. "Trust is a luxury neither of us can afford right now." The words hung in the air, but beneath the tension was an unspoken connection neither could deny. As weeks passed, Zara and Kaan found themselves working more closely together. She began to see a different side of him, a man who was deeply committed to his work, but also haunted by his past. Despite the differences in their worlds, they shared moments of vulnerability, moments that showed Zara a more human side of Kaan. There were times when their conversations veered from business to something more personal. Zara learned about Kaan's rise from humble beginnings, how he had clawed his way to the top, and how the weight of his success often felt like a burden. In turn, Zara shared her struggles with the legacy of her family and the pressure to save what had been lost. It was long before Zara began to question her initial judgment of Kaan. Could he really be the villain she had imagined? Or was there more to him than the ruthless businessman she had been warned about? But every time she felt herself softening, a reminder of the stakes would pull her back into the battle. Kaan still wanted her family's estate, and Zara couldn't let her guard down, not yet. One afternoon, Zara found an old journal hidden in her father's study. It was filled with stories about her family's past, stories of wealth, love, betrayal, and ambition. As she flipped through the pages, one entry caught her eye. A note about a secret deal made years ago between her family and the Demir family. The deal was meant to protect her family's wealth but had somehow backfired, leaving her father in debt to the Demirs. Zara's heart sank. This was just about business, it was personal. Kaan's family had been tied to her family's downfall for generations. Feeling betrayed, Zara confronted Kaan, demanding answers. "How long were you planning to use me for your own gain?" she asked, her voice sharp with hurt. Kaan didn't flinch. "You think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to be the man who destroys everything your family built? I didn't have a choice." For the first time, Zara saw the weight of guilt in Kaan's eyes. There was more at play here than she had realized. But as the truth unraveled, Zara was left with a question. Could she forgive the sins of the past, or was it too late for them to have any future? The lines between work and emotion were becoming increasingly blurred. As the days passed, Zara found herself drawn to Kaan in ways she couldn't explain. He had a magnetic presence, one that seemed to pull her in no matter how much she tried to fight it. Despite their differences, they began to share more intimate conversations. They'd laugh over their disagreements, spar over ideas for the resort, and sometimes linger in silence as the weight of their shared history loomed over them. But with every moment they spent together, Zara's heart grew heavier. Kaan was still a businessman, still driven by his ambition, and she was still the heir to an estate that he desperately wanted. Would they ever move beyond their tangled emotions, or would their growing connection be nothing more than an illusion? One evening, as they sat overlooking the Bosphorus from Kaan's private balcony, Zara turned to him. "Why did you even want this estate?" she asked softly. "You have everything you could ever want. What's the point of taking what's not yours?" Kaan's gaze softened, and for a moment, she saw the vulnerability that had been hidden beneath his steely exterior. "I wanted it because it was never truly mine to begin with. And I wanted to fix what was broken between our families," he confessed, but his words only made Zara's feelings more complicated. If Kaan truly wanted redemption, why had he pushed her so far into a corner? Why had he played with her emotions? Her thoughts were interrupted when Kaan reached for her hand. "Zara, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far, but I do want to make things right if you'll let me." His touch lingered, and for a fleeting moment, Zara considered the possibility of forgiveness. But the walls she had built around her heart were hard to tear down. Just when Zara thought she was beginning to understand Kaan and what motivated him, everything came crashing down. She was reviewing the final drafts for the resort's design when a document she was supposed to see caught her attention, a contract that outlined Kaan's plan to buy her family's estate for a fraction of its worth. He'd intended to force the sale through his influence, effectively taking the estate from her family without giving them a fair chance to fight back. Zara's heart dropped. The man she had started to trust, had even started to care for, was no different from the ruthless businessman she had feared. It was all a game to him. She had been nothing more than a pawn in his master plan. Furious and betrayed, Zara confronted Kaan in his office, slamming the contract onto his desk. "How could you do this?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "You promised me that you were helping. You said you wanted to fix things, but you were just using me all along." Kaan's face turned pale as he realized what she had discovered. "Zara, I never meant for you to find out this way," he said, his voice low. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Zara's voice cracked. "Why didn't you just be honest with me from the beginning?" He reached out to her, but Zara stepped back. "I can't do this anymore. You've already taken everything. I won't let you take my heart too." With those final words, Zara stormed out, leaving Kaan in the silence of his own regret. After her confrontation with Kaan, Zara withdrew from the project entirely. She packed her bags and left the city for a while, seeking solace in the quiet of the countryside. She needed to clear her mind and figure out where to go next. The weight of betrayal was too much to bear, and her once unshakable determination to protect her family's estate felt like a distant memory. Back in Istanbul, Kaan struggled with the fallout of Zara's departure. He knew he had pushed her too far, but he hadn't realized the true cost of his actions. The deal was already set in motion, and there was no way to undo the damage. But it was the business deal that kept him awake at night. It was the absence of Zara. Her presence, her spirit, had become a part of him. And now that she was gone, he realized just how much he had lost. He tried calling her, but she didn't answer. He sent messages, but they went unread. She had cut him off completely. Kaan spent the next few weeks reevaluating everything. He had built his empire on ambition and power, but it had come at the cost of the one thing that mattered most: genuine connection. He knew he had to make things right. He had to fight for Zara, even if it meant risking everything he had worked for. Determined to prove his love for Zara, Kaan made a bold decision. He called in a favor from his closest friends and business associates and arranged a grand gesture that would leave Zara speechless. He planned to stop the sale of the estate, to give her family the chance to regain control, and to erase the debt that had put them in this position to begin with. But there was more. Kaan wanted to rebuild Zara's trust. He knew that actions spoke louder than words. So he orchestrated a surprise meeting at Kirshkevi, the very place where their story had started. He stood in the garden, surrounded by the ruins of the mansion, holding a letter of intent to restore the estate. When Zara arrived, she was speechless. Kaan stood before her, vulnerable and sincere. "I made a terrible mistake. I never should have used you, Zara. You are more important to me than anything else. I've come to understand that no amount of wealth can fix the broken parts of my heart. Only you can." Zara stood still, the emotions flooding her all at once. She was angry, hurt, and confused, but there was also a part of her that wanted to believe in the man standing before her. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right away," Kaan continued, his voice thick with emotion, "but I want to make things right. I want to build a future with you, one that's not built on power, but on love." Zara's heart wavered as she looked at the man who had once seemed like an enemy. Would she trust him again? Zara stood there, caught between the past and the future. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but there was something in Kaan's eyes, something real that she couldn't ignore. After a long silence, she stepped forward, her voice soft. "I don't know if I can forget what happened, but I want to believe in you. I want to believe that we can make this work." Kaan reached out to her, his hand gentle on her cheek. "I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I'm worthy of your trust. I'll never take you for granted again." And in that moment, Zara knew that love was a choice. They both had to choose it every day, not just in the good moments, but in the painful ones as well. They could rebuild their love, brick by brick, and make something stronger than they had before. With the estate saved and a future filled with promise, Zara and Kaan began a new chapter, one built on trust, redemption, and the undeniable power of love. And though their journey had been filled with trials, it was in each other's arms that they found their happily ever after. For more interesting folk tales by Queen Zara, please click on the subscription button.